No Labour seat in Scotland can now be considered safe. The claim from the SNP today following their stunning victory in the Glasgow East by-election.
The Nationalists had predicted a political earthquake, and last night Labour's vote crumbled. Their 2005 general election total of almost 19,000 votes fell to less than 11,000, around 350 behind the SNP. It's a swing of 22.5%, representing the biggest political upset since Labour took power at Westminster. In a moment, we'll analyse the results with our political correspondents here and in London. But first, Katrina Renton has this report which features flash photography.
The morning after, but what a night before. The earthquake the First Minister predicted really did happen.
The theme that John developed during the campaign was to send a message to Gordon Brown and to send it in clear and unmistakable terms. That message is change your policy or change your job.
This seat was rock-solid Labour. Not anymore.
Today I want to promise the people of Glasgow East that I'm here to serve you. The people of Glasgow East have spoken for the whole country. You have sent a message to Gordon Brown that it's time for action, time for him to listen.
And I declare that John Mason is duly elected to serve as the member of the UK Parliament for the Glasgow East constituency.
This was the moment it all became official, although the SNP were pretty confident when their candidate arrived at the count. And all evening the glum faces from Labour said it all. So, in the cold light of day, where did it all go wrong?
Last night was a bad night for us. The people of Glasgow East sent us a clear message, and we will examine what that message means, and we will respond to it. And Margaret Curran, I believe we had the outstanding candidate of this by-election, but she has paid the price of the national mood.
Labour did admit they got off to a disastrous start when they failed to select a candidate and lost the first 4 days of the campaign. The others saw this as a way to get ahead. But even so, the Liberal Democrats lost their deposit, and the Tories may now be in third place, although with a shade of the vote, still way behind the SNP and Labour.
Just to give you an idea of the scale of what's happened here, in its various guises, Glasgow East has been held by Labour since 1922. It was their third safest seat in Scotland with a majority of over 13,500. So the thought that anyone else could come even close here until now was almost unthinkable.
So, in a word or two, what finished it for Labour?
The war. Lies.
Broken promises.
Iraq.
Prime Minister. John Mason.
Few believed this by-election would be easy for Labour, but even fewer thought the SNP could pull this off. Katrina Renton reporting Scotland, Glasgow East.
Well, let's speak to our political correspondent Glenn Campbell, who's in the constituency this evening. Glenn, a terrible result for Labour. What will this mean for the SNP?
Well, Alex Salmond says that he wants Westminster to dance to a Scottish jig after the next UK-wide general election by returning 20 Nationalist MPs to Westminster. A lot of people thought that prediction was far-fetched. Of course, on the swing in this by-election, there would only be one Labour MP left in Scotland if that was repeated. Now, it's a much bigger task to beat Labour in a big contest like that as opposed to a localised by-election, not least when the big picture is the battle for number 10. But the Nationalists are in very good heart, and this is a wake-up call to Labour. Is there now a safe Labour seat in Scotland, they must be wondering.
And what about the Labour candidate Margaret Curran?
Well, she obviously doesn't go to Westminster. She'll remain an MSP for the East End constituency of Baillieston. I think her hopes of standing in the race to succeed Wendy Alexander as the party's leader are now over. But when nominations close on Monday, I expect at least 3 candidates. Cathy Jamieson, Ian Gray, and although he's given no indications, I'm told that Andy Kerr is seeking support and intends to stand too.
OK, Glenn, many thanks.
Well, last night's defeat for Labour will go down as one of the great by-election shocks in Scottish political history. Now, questions are being asked over what it could mean for Gordon Brown's leadership and Labour's prospects at the next general election. This from our correspondent, Rival Alderson.
Winifred Margaret Ewing,
Scottish nationalist.
18,397.
There have been political earthquakes in Scotland before. Hamilton, 1967, the first SNP parliamentary seat since the war.
Hamilton has made history for Scotland tonight. Thank you all.
Govan, of course, is writ large in the annals of the SNP. First, Margot MacDonald won in 1973. Jim Sillars won it 15 years later with a cataclysmic 33% swing. And more recently, the Lib Dems won in Dunfermline with a 16% move from Labour. But do such earthquakes provide lasting aftershocks? This was the political landscape after the last general election, with huge swathes of the country in red, sending back 41 Labour MPs, a clear majority of the 51 Westminster seats. But just look at what would happen if last night's 22% swing from Labour were to be replaced. Just one Labour MP would remain, Tom Clark's North Lanarkshire seat. The overall party breakdown in that eventuality would be Labour on 1 seat, the SNP with a massive 50 seats, the Lib Dems with 7 and the Tories as now with 1 MP. But of course, this is highly unlikely. However, by-election winners should remember most don't go on to retain their seat in a general election.
Parties don't necessarily succeed in hanging on to these, but in the end, that's perhaps what's not crucial. What in a sense Glasgow East is really about is about now a consistent pattern, particularly together with Crewe, of the Labour Party doing badly in by-elections. Now, they wouldn't do that badly in these seats in the general election, but boy, if there were to be an immediate general election, the Labour Party certainly would do badly.
The Labour candidate is in the shopping centre now.
Labour has stemmed nationalist advances in the past, notably in Glasgow Gascaden.
507 votes.
Donald Dewar took the seat against a rampant SNP, and in the next election, their bubble burst. Reeve Alderson reporting Scotland.
Well, let's get some more analysis now with our Westminster correspondent David Porter, who's in Downing Street. We've got David Cameron wanting a general election. So let's just get into context what this result does mean for Gordon Brown.
Well, David, one thing you won't see behind me are removal vans in Downing Street. Gordon Brown went to bed as Prime Minister yesterday. He'll go to bed as Prime Minister again tonight. But let's not kid ourselves. What happened in Glasgow East was extraordinary. It was a humiliation for the Labour Party and for Gordon Brown personally, because Scotland is his own political backyard. Also, very importantly, it means that Gordon Brown is becoming a serial electoral loser, and that will unnerve many Labour MPs who are thinking about their own future. Already today the sniping has begun, and already we've got a situation where union leaders and some Labour backbenchers are calling for a leadership election in the autumn, in their words, to clear the air. Gordon Brown himself says no, he is going to stay. I think his relationship with senior colleagues is going to be very important, as is the way the economy goes. That will decide Gordon Brown's fate. It will also decide Labour's fate, both north and south of the border.
OK, David, thank you for that. You're watching Reporting Scotland from the BBC. Still to come before 7 o'clock. A Scottish Army commander